Israel has made deep inroads into a continent traditionally sympathetic to Palestine. But Israel's gains have limits too. As reports of Hamas fighters attacking southern Israel last Saturday flooded phones and television sets around the world, Kenyan President William Ruto took to X, the social media platform formerly known as Twitter. Kenya joins the rest of the world in solidarity with the state of Israel and unequivocally condemns terrorism and attacks on innocent civilians in the country, he wrote. There exists no justification whatsoever for terrorism, which constitutes a serious threat to international peace and security. The international community must mobilize to bring the perpetrators, organizers, financiers, sponsors, supporters, and enablers of these reprehensible criminal acts of terrorism to account and speedily bring them to justice. It was an explicit endorsement of Israel's position, some would argue, the response that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government has since unleashed on the Gaza Strip, with a bombing campaign that has killed more than 1,900 people. And it was a social media post that underscored Israel's growing influence in Africa. As the death toll from the war mounts, African governments are wading into heated debates surrounding the conflict, with the continent split, as different nations take opposing sides. Authorities in South Africa blamed the escalation on Israel's illegal occupation and desecration of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, as well as sacred Christian sites, in a statement on Sunday. A top official, Zain Dongayer, told local news channel ENCA that Hamas's bloody attack, while not a solution, was unsurprising and that the conflict would not stop until the occupation ends. Algeria declared full solidarity with Palestine early on in the war. The African Union Commission under Moussa Mahamat Faki, while expressing concern over the violence, has blamed the denial of the fundamental rights of the Palestinians, and called for a two-state solution. But Kenya, Zambia, Ghana, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo are among other African nations that have aligned with Israel's position. So why is a continent that suffered the worst ravages of colonialism and racism for centuries and that has historically, for the most part, supported Palestine, split now? The short answer, Africa's divisions highlight each government's attempt to compartmentalize their interests, experts say, and underline some countries' strengthening ties with Israel. On the one hand, there are deep-rooted ties with the Palestinian movement, on the other, the offer of cutting-edge technology, military assistance and aid from Israel. Which wins out could determine how Africa tilts if this conflict drags on, and in the future, African countries shedding the pain of brutal colonial rule in the 1960s were cold to a newly formed Israel and were sympathetic to the struggle of Palestinians uprooted from their land and homes in 1948. Following the October War of 1973, the Continental Bloc, then the Organization of African Unity, OAU, severed ties with Israel. Algeria has been a leading critic of Israel on the continent, even as its rival Morocco's relations with Israel have blossomed after they agreed to normalize ties in 2020. Zine Labadine Gabuli, a researcher with the European Council on Foreign Relations, ECFR, traces some of Algeria's sentiments to the 1988 Palestinian Declaration of Independence in Algiers and even further back to Algeria's history under French colonialism. The Algeria-Palestine relationship is very historic and emotional, Gabuli told Al Jazeera, adding that Islam as a common religion solidifies those ties. We were occupied by France, and this history of brutality is similar. On my social media feed right now. It's all about solidarity with Palestine at the moment.